This is the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi Shir for day 27. And day 27 is, according to the calendar, Yud Beis Zayin to Yud Gimel Aleph. So, Yud Beis Zayin is we're talking about here when we have severed strings about whether you need to have Kedei Aniva, don't have to have Kedei Aniva left. So he says, there are bein basis tofas and nifka chut meikor have ada kanof. But the base says said a severed string can go all the way up to the corner. People question they're very difficult. Okay, that this is not actually it doesn't seem to be the case. The Meikoro Perish Rashi Menachos and Rosham B'chor B'Talis. This is the Rashi says in Menachos that it is the end which is connected to the talis itself, which is even further up. It's above and beyond the part which is tied. It's and wrapped. It's mamish at the corner. Supposed to be Yosef who is talking about at the bottom of the deal, at the bottom of the tied up part. According to this, Yosef's words are simple. The benipsak min echad, when either the tchelas or the laban has been severed, shishmait ad hakanaf, when it goes down, when it goes up to the corner, which in this case means not including the tied up part. Kash is still kasha. But the top, which is connected to the talis itself, which is the ma'ila malameg deal. I'm sorry, I say that was middle sentence. Apologize. Parsed wrong. Let's do it again. If he's a should the nifsak min echok she's my arkanaf kasher. Ava rosham b'chubel talis ma'ila malameg deal ma'ashkanaf adayin kayam. That's all. If it's cut up to the gadil, it's kasher as long as that which is above the gadil, that which is above the time wrap part, and connected to the talis itself, is, in other words, is laying on the talis. To be most precise, laying on the talis from the top of the thigh part to the hole is still intact. But if it's severed up there, with a part which is laying on the talis between the gadil and the hole, even one string puzzle. Because it's severed completely out of the hole. It's no longer going through the hole properly, which is in the corner. On the other hand, if all of them have been cut below the gadil, below that tied and wrapped section, if there's Kedei Aniba, if there's enough to loop, it's still kosher. So according to this Shita Rambam, Shita Kudema, Shita Sarosh Rova Poskim. The Rambam holds like most other poskim, Rambam Yosem Mekel. But the Rambam is more lenient than they are. Right? Shita Kudemes. According to prior pshat, the Benifsa Kudachad the Gamre. When one string has been severed altogether, meaning up to the gadil, there's nothing left below the tied and wrap part. Again, right? There aren't in two of the strings, meaning one of the two minim. According to Rambam, the two minim are 7 and 1. So I'm not sure exactly how it works according to Rambam, but in any event, Shita Kodemes, which is the Shita Rabbeinu Tam, that's 2 and 2, which means 4 and 4. So Tchelis is 2 and Lavan is 2, which is 4 and 4. So then, according to that, the Nifsa Chut Echad Gamre, Shon Shtar Ba B'Shnei Chutim Meshmoina, Shem Chut Echad Kedei Aniba, that in the in 2 out of the 8 strings, there is not in those strings enough to make a loop puzzle. Rambam Lomu Sokai Gavna. Rambam is still not puzzle. Tipasek Me Rosham B'Chur B'Latalis. As long as it's not severed on top of the deal, it's still kosher. But as soon as you're going to previous meaning, even if in one of them there isn't a mount to loop, unless you use the other side of the same string, and then the other side of the same string does have enough to loop, then that's okay. Gamkin kosher. Mikom Karabina, but he says the Sibra going to be stopping with Zel my sign child. Rabbi Yosef is not sure about this. Mr. Boer writes that sounds in the Eliyah Rabbah and Dvar Chaim there should be machmir, even if it's a suffix, if it's the same string. Arutz Chaim is meko in a suffix, if as long as you're not sure it's the same string, which is severed completely up to the gadil on both sides, you're okay. The Arukh HaShulchan says Arzel Pasha to labish de chutim tzar k'dei aniba. You don't need k'dei aniba on both sides, on two of the chutim, meaning on both sides of the same chut. You only need k'dei aniba on one side of the same chut. Maybe, according to Arutz Chaim, even if you're not sure if you have it left from in the same chut. Still, since we have Rambam Shita, so therefore you can rely on Makom Safek. It's kind of like a Sfeik Sfeika. It's not kind of, it is a Sfeik Sfeika. Safek, if Allah like the Rambam, that you don't need anything left under the deal. And even Allah is not like the Rambam, maybe this one is the one which still has Kedei Aniva and at least one side. So therefore, that's Chaim, you can be Mekel if you have Sfeik Sfeika. The Daibachas Mammoth, in any event, one side is enough. So, because from the same string, it just happens to go on two sides, right? But it's the same string, it's the same one of the four. We don't need two loop-de-loops. At least I amused myself with that joke, right? And he brings down a few more comments. To be honest, Ram is astonished that the Torah and Shulchan don't bring down the Rambam at all. Ches, v'nim tzol comes out according to Halacha. The Shita Kodemes, according to previous opinion, for the Rambam, and according to Rambam, should dictate Beis Hasiyah, if you were meticulous when you made your tzitzis. I don't know whether most tzitzis makers do. Of course, when you and I make tzitzis on our own, we're meticulous about this. When it comes to the factory, I don't know. I think we can assume that they are meticulous to make sure that this is the case. That's what I would assume. So it comes out the she does when you're meticulous when you make it's local that's the same. The four are on one side, and from the other side are consistent throughout the entire deal from the top to the bottom. In other words, you never are double up on one side, two of the strings. Even if all four strings on one side are ripped all the way up to the bottom of the wraps and knots, it's still kosher. Because since all these four are on the other side, four longer strings, you have left enough to loop on each and every string of the four. The Rambam Roy Plaiskin. Rambam most go this way. There's one opinion which she has Shita Acheres the Gamrei Bezeh, who has a completely different opinion of this. Kamoshi's Ba'er, like will be explained, Shita Sarbeinu Tam. Imki Rush Dacha Shita, so even though the Rush pushes aside the sheet of the Rabbeinu Tam, nevertheless, that's over Shulchan Rabbeinu. The Torah shouldn't bring it down. But I yesh lachshov Shita Zuk Shevshar, and what's possible to be Choshev Rabbeinu Tam, you should be Choshev Rabbeinu Tam. But the Ikar Halacha is like the Shita we just learned. Now we're going to learn the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. Test. That's Rabbeinu Tam. The opinion of Rabbeinu Tam is Shezeshem Regmor Gardume Tcheles Kisherim. That what remains of the Tcheles is kosher. Shishak de Aniva B'chol Achas. It means that you need Aniva in each and every string. It's not enough to have the four on one side. Every one of the 8 strings has to have Kedei Aniva left. Pirshukor B'Seinu Tcheles L'Hashem Pirshukor B'Seinu the Tcheles L'Hashem Al Klal HaTzitzis. Well, actually, I just said I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. Let me go back to be able to see. That's the time she says, that which it says that Taniva is whatever is left of the Tcheles kosher when there's Taniva in each one. It doesn't make them Tcheles and Lovan. As long as any string has Taniva on one side, that's good enough. Rabbeinu Tam said about Tcheles Dafka. The hometown holds no. It applies specifically to tchelis. Klomar, meaning shekshne chutei lavan shleim legamrei. If the two chutim of lavan are completely kosher, they're still intact. With the oz, then in nifzgo shnei chutei tcheles, if two strings of tcheles were cut, nishtar the aniva, and there's enough to loop left, kosher. With pizza, according to us, the Dutch gar, but chutim emi lavan. According to us, that all four chutim are white. Shnayim makam lavan, v'shnayim makam tcheles, 2 for white and 2 for tcheles. Ain't kosher l'kei shnei chutim yisharu shleimin legamrei. It's not kosher going to them unless 2 strings are completely whole. How you base gedolim? Gedolim, 12 thumbs. Thus, remember, Rabbeinu Tam also said the schumrah that the string has to be 12 thumbs, right? There are other opinions which are much more lenient. Then when 2 others are severed, and they only have K'nei Niva kosher. But if 3 strings are severed, even if though you have K'nei Niva left, it is possible. Yud, according to Zashita Zu, according to this opinion, when 3 heads of 3 of the 8 strings are cut, even though there's enough to loop, puzzle, no good. Because they're afraid maybe it's from 3 strings, 3 different strings, and the maximum current of time is 2. We don't have 2 which are complete. According to this, doesn't make a difference if you're meticulous leaving the same 4 on each side or not. But on the contrary, if you were meticulous, go ahead, fey. It's worse. Because then if the 3 cut ones were on one side, there's only from 3 strings. That's for sure puzzle. But nevertheless, even if you were meticulous, and 2 was cut one side, one on the other side, nevertheless, it might be from 3 separate strings, and we fake a puzzle. According to Rabbi Tam, it's puzzle, we solve it. But if there are only 2 strings that are cut down all the way, if there are 2 sides, one of them you have to have enough to loop. It's true also if you have they are on one side and you were not meticulous to divide them 4 this way and 4 this way the entire time. But if you did, it was on one side and meticulous to dividing up the right way, kosher then it's kosher even if you don't have Kedei Aniva on one side as long as the string is fully intact on the other side. The other strings are fully intact. Moshita Kodemis. He says in the brackets here, Arukh HaShulchan OC. Gone through all the different shitos. The only when it's severed at the very top of the chut. That's the Tesser Rosh Mikra Kosher L'Shtark. The Aniva is called where there's not a loop left. L'Rashi Rambam Nifsak HaRosh HaMechuber Latalis. According to Rashi and Rambam, specifically when the part which is in the talis itself is cut, that's a problem. Not if it's any part below the gedil. V'lon Eidam Minoli the Rabbeinu Tam most spiritually. That's not how we know. The Rabbeinu Tam doesn't hold like Rashi and Rambam. There's a real problem. It's not below the gedil, but above the gedil. So Rashi Rambam. He doesn't understand why Rashi and Rambam not brought down. Perhaps you can rely upon them that as long as the cut is not above the gedil, it's okay. But tzarich in l'dina v'duk, and is not sure about the plaloch l'maisa. Yudalef Torah Pashnu. It's clear. The aniva totally becomes a chutim dakusan. The aniva is relative. Depends how many strings you have and how thin they are. Remember, the aniva can be not just in the same string, but if you can loop the loop from string to string. They may dakim die but pachos if they're thin, you need less. Shemav if they're thick, tzarich yoser, you need more. Achafil shemav and ben the aniva, but if even they're thick and they don't have enough to loop, mishani kilim chutim beinonim. We look at them as if they are mid-size, mid-thickness strings. And then you could tie them, loop them, it's kosher. So that's a leniency. If they're really thick, you reckon them as if they're mid-size. But if they're if they're not machmer, if they're really thin, we also reckon like mid-size. That we don't do. It's interesting, somebody on machmer to have talis thick strings on their kalas katan. But he says that there's a mitzvah to make chutim beinoni. And some people say it should be, the thickness of a chut should be as long 8 hairbreadths. Somebody have wrong. Your base, b'da, you should know the zeshnis barasha tzurch shiur kidei aniva zu. That which means that that which is you have to have enough left to loop. Shishemina anav shiur zeh. That's that left off below the gedil, below the tied map bar. That Rashi. Havarikasav shapil nechtach kol anav. Even if the entire corner is cut up, v'rak minad gedil, and only from the actual part which is tied and wrapped, you have to the aniba. Were you to loosen it? Kasha, still kasha. V'ayam nagin karashi. V'ayam is a minute, it's like Rashi, that the aniba should be below the gedil. Im lo makom diyav shar klalas, it's the chem, and not play. That's the place where you can't get tzitzis, any other tzitzis. They rely in such a difficult circumstance on the re. That's our beta time according to Rabbi Teinu time. Yesh lachush harbei. You have to be very concerned. Hechat efshar kalim tzot tzitzis acher, where it's possible to find other tzitzis. But you don't have to seek high and low for them. Samachal dasu b'shas adchak lo yavarich al tzitzis. You rely on the re. That's enough to have teniva in the wrapped and tied part to make a bracha on tzitzis. And lo yisrael some b'Shabbos. And they'll walk outside them where there is no Eruv on Shabbos. For royal chodem kshabodek got tzitzis not going to be karm shel tzitzis min hanekav lamata. When a person looks at tzitzis, it's appropriate to look at the string of tzitzis even from the hole through the gedil. The b'shami nifsak, because if they're severed there, and nifsak will make karm, so everybody is possible. Shnifsak got tzitzis b'ayv shen nifsalu. And if the tzitzis are severed in a way that they're possible, lo mani mashikshor anivsak banivsha doesn't help that you're going to tie that which is severed with the rest. Even if tying this would work before you made it, in other words, if you had a severed string and you tied it together with the other part of it before you made the tzitzis, but afterwards it becomes impossible. You can't make them kosher again by tying. Why? Because of our old friend Tas Evlomina Asli. The Mepharshim say that if you have a severed string of the 4 and you can tie both ends together before you put it into the beged. So if you have short strings, you can tie one to the other and put them into your talis. Your gimel, tzitzis b'Shabbos. Aleph, tzitzis einam ketfilin. Tzitzis are not like tefillin. Tefillin shishtei mitzvah same. Are tefillin to mitzvahs. Shel yah levad v'shel rosh levad. Mitzvah shel yah, mitzvah shel rosh. They makvin zed not impediment on each other. Niach echom elkain mitzvah. If you put on just one of them, you'll fill mitzvah. How tzitzis kol but tzitzios mitzvah achasi. But by tzitzis, all 4 corners are one mitzvah. Makvin zed and they repeat each other. Shemchaser achas me'at tzitzis, if one of them is missing, or nifslo or is invalid, kulam b'teos, they all nullify. Lavish talis b'shosh tzitzis, and you put on a talis which only has 3 tzitzis. Lo levad shloki mitzvah. It's not just using for the mitzvah. Agamos avera. You also commit an avera. You say talis bas arba kanfos below tzitzis. You're wearing a talis of 4 kanfos without tzitzis, which is the bittul mitzvah I say of tzitzis. Vayotzim talis b'Shabbos shusram chayav chatas. So you wear such talis out shusram, you're liable to chatas because it's a garment without a mitzvah. Right? Your mitzvah, it's a garment you're putting on for a mitzvah, and there is no mitzvah. Well, actually, let's make this clear for the next line. Even if the garment is a garment, and you're wearing it as a garment, not just for the purpose of a mitzvah, still no good. Why? Because the 3 strings which do you no good under these circumstances are a burden which you're carrying on Shabbos. And they're not batel, they're not nullified, null to the garment, like other knots that clean beged, other knots in the garment, the batle which are null to the garment, which goes to Mishin Aleph, the tzitzis chashivi lo batle, tzitzis are chashiv not batel. This actually leads to the related question of reserve buttons on a shirt, but that will have to wait till Siman Shin Aleph. Okay, since you have mine to use them when you later fix your tzitzis. Therefore, if in fact they're all puzzle and you can't use them, they're not reusable at all. But tell my beggar, then they are butted to the garment. They're not liable for chatos. It's a separate prohibition, lighter prohibition, not the rest. You're wearing a garment of 4 kanfos, so that's tzitzis, which is problem of tzitzis, not Nichol Shabbos. Shum Shabbos ain't over. The Barbie Simon Shemal, we need problem Shabbos. They say Rashi Shampirish the Chashivos who mishum tchelas. So then it's because the tchelas of pizza was not as a shame tchelas batle. In our day and age, the lovan will be batel to the garment, and therefore, even if you only have 3 tzitzis, okay. After the Brahman Pirshu Kukamosh Kosabnu, meantime the daito lashlim doesn't matter if it's the blue or the white, since you have mind to be mashlamit. So therefore, to carry the 3 tzitzis would be chayav chatas in which is wrapping on